Shalom friends, this is Eliyahu Shear from Chesed ve'emet, www.lovingkindness.co. Today we're starting a new series of Shiurim. Let's see how far it goes. And the name of the Shiur is called Ahavat Chessed, Loving Kindness, which is in fact the name of my website, lovingkindness.co. The world is really all about loving kindness, and we find ourselves at the moment at a period of time where a virus is attacking all of us, the coronavirus, as everybody knows. And there are all sorts of things happening in the world that are preventing us from getting on with our day-to-day activities, the things that we like to do every single day. Unfortunately, people are losing their lives over this virus. People are losing their parnosses over the virus, their livelihoods, because unfortunately, many are in quarantine all around the world, sitting at home, unable to do the usual activities that they would be involved in. This virus is really putting us into a situation where we have to say to ourselves, is there perhaps something that we need to do or work on ourselves that could assist in repairing the damage that this virus is doing to us? Meaning we have to look at the situation and say to us, there is a God in the world, and this particular God wants from us to do something. What is it that he's asking from us? When a plague comes to us in the world in general, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing and fulfilling our purpose in creation? Or is there perhaps something that this God wants from us? Coming close to the period of Pesach, we know well that the Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt, and Pharaoh would not let the Jewish people go free until eventually Moshe had to bring 10 plagues upon Pharaoh in order to free the Jewish people. No matter what the circumstances were at the time, Pharaoh refused to grant freedom to the Jewish people. He continued to enslave them, destroying their lives, taking away any dignity and respect that they had, all in the name of his own arrogance. Ultimately, Moshe Rabbeinu, at the command of Hashem, brought 10 plagues, which eventually caused Pharaoh to fall apart completely and allow the Jewish people to leave. In fact, not only was it that he allowed them to leave, he pushed them out. Interestingly enough, when the plagues came about, each plague itself had no proof as to how long it would go for. Although we know that from what the Midrash teaches us, at least, that the plagues lasted for a month at a time, well, 3 weeks, and then there was always a week of warning, and thereafter the time period to remove the plague. Anyhow, the point being that when Pharaoh saw these plagues, he did not know how long these plagues were going to last for. And then Moshe would approach him and he would say to him, well, when you're ready, tell me when I should pray that the plague should leave. And the plague left. And this is exactly what happens to Pharaoh, to the Jewish people, and ultimately caused them their freedom. One of the things that we can do, not only now at this period in time, but it is something that we can recognize as being important in our lives in general, is increase in our attribute of kindness. Kindness is the very attribute that brings goodness to the world. When we are kind to each other, we make a difference in each other's lives. Then we bring happiness to each other. On the other hand, when we take away from this attribute of kindness, all that happens to us is that we stay in a state of stinginess, nastiness. And all that does to us ultimately is put us into our own brackets of life, pulls us away from life. And isn't that exactly what the virus is doing to us right now? It is awakening us, and it is telling us that our problem is that we're not giving to each other. And if we're not giving to each other as we should, we must stay at home. We must stay in a state of quarantine, away from people. We must stop shaking hands. We must be careful of every other person. In fact, even standing next to them, be careful, be warned, stay away. Just like the story of the person in the Torah, in the Bible, that speaks about one who spoke lashon hara, who spoke bad speech about another, would have to go outside of the camp. And there he would sit all by himself, because he was in a state of leprosy, until he would do teshuvah and ultimately be freed from his state of quarantine. While he was there, He would, in fact, cover himself from his face, completely was covered from the head down to his mouth. Only his mouth was exposed. Ironically, today we are putting a mask on our mouths mostly, but then the mouth was exposed to show that this is where the Avera was. Naturally, there's not much a difference if we place the mask over our mouths or we place the mask above our mouths. Both indicate that there's a problem with the mouth. There's a problem with speaking badly about each other. Funnily enough, these works that we're speaking about now, the one that we're going to learn, the Ahavat Chessed, loving kindness, is written by the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael, Meir, HaKohen, Kagan, and he also wrote the book of Lashon Hara, the Chofetz Chaim. And both of these two books go hand in hand, because loving a fellow Jew automatically implies not speaking badly about him. Speaking badly or not speaking badly about a fellow Jew also implies I'm going to learn how to love him. What I'm saying, of course, refers to the Jewish nation as a whole. But if there is somebody listening to this lesson and they're not Jewish, let's be clear that the creator of the world is not speaking only to the Jewish people in a general sense, that they should be kind to each other and they should love each other. But he's speaking in a complete sense that the entire world needs to respect each other, to stop the nonsense of speaking evil speech about each other, and instead to perform acts of loving kindness to assist each other. When we do that, we can get along as a society. We can be good and kind, respectful of each person, and make an impact on society as a whole. Everybody giving to each other in a way that nobody suffers. If we do not do this, as this plague is teaching us, we may as well be no better than remaining at home in a state of quarantine, achieving nothing, being unable to do anything for anybody, including ourselves. We need to wake up and realize our duty in life is to do kindness, to do goodness. Here we sit, for example, in a state of quarantine, so many people in the world right now, and they're unable to leave their houses. What could they do? They can do acts of kindness. Today we live in a generation where one can go online to various fundraising activities, and at the click of a button, indeed, the click of a button, one can enter 3, 4, 5 digits into a little box and have an impact on the life of another person to such a degree that one will save his life from the difficulties that he is currently going through. Many people make excuses. They say they don't know how to use it. They don't know what to do. The computer's not working properly. Or maybe the person doesn't really need the money. Or maybe they should go and work. Or maybe X, Y, and Z. But when one is stuck in a situation like this, as we find ourselves today, sometimes there is nothing that one can do. One is forced to be in a situation where one is stuck in one's home, unable to earn an income. For those people, such as myself, I rent, money has to come in some way in order to provide the landlord with his income, because the house isn't owned by myself. And what do these people do in order to bring in this income, in order to continue their payments? The water must be paid for, the electricity must be paid for, the telephone must be paid for. One still needs to do shopping. Perhaps it's online shopping, and one must pay extra for the delivery, whatever the situation, or extra for the privilege of doing the online shopping because one cannot leave one's home. No matter what it is, money is needed. And there are so many people whose lives can be saved on account of a dollar bill. I'm very often fond of saying that many people, unfortunately, because of circumstances in life, they feel like giving up. Many people have given up. As we know, we don't need to speak about all these terrible situations. Sometimes people give up because life is just too hard. We can never say that it's an excuse. We can never say that a person could do what he could to himself just because he was going through difficulties. But think about this for a moment. A person who is not afflicted, God forbid, by a disease, or is not afflicted by emotional problems in his mind, but the only difficulty that he really has in his life is paying his basic bills. That is where he's suffering. And he could consider in his mind that life is not worthwhile to him because he simply cannot get by in paying his basic bills. Here he is in quarantine. He has no income whatsoever. He knows that the landlord needs his money, as do the water company and the electricity company and so on and so forth. And he feels that he's going to give up completely because he has no money. Never should it be that a person has to give up on life because of money, because there is so much money in the world that each of us have the ability to sustain others in accordance with what we have. So many have an excess of wealth that by simply going on to a PayPal site or whatever it is, they can, a funding site, they can enter an amount and they can make a real difference in the life of another person. They can change them. They can give them life. They can give them hope. That is our duty. We need to give hope and we need to give life to everybody. Of course, I'm not negating the fact that a person who is going through emotional troubles, physical troubles, he's sick, he's not well, we must give each person the hope and the encouragement that they need. That is our duty. That a person should never have to feel a loss of hope of going on another day, but being able to deal with the day and all the tests and activities required to progress. Why? Because God wants us to fulfill a role in the world as souls within bodies. When we do that, we fulfill God's role, God's purpose to life itself. If we do not have this kindness in the world, if we are not prepared to give to each other as we should, people are going to give up. People will not know what to do. People will fall apart because they are lacking. What is the best thing that we can do right now, especially if you're watching this and you happen to be in quarantine right now, or you happen to be by yourself, or you're not getting out for whatever reason you've chosen not to leave your home? Think about the kindness that you can do to make an impact on the life of somebody else. And you can even put it into practice today by, as I say, all these so many sites available that one can just go online and make a payment and help somebody. What about saying a kind word? What about changing our words to people, speaking well of them and encourage them through an email, a positive email that shows that we're thinking about them, we're worried about them, we're concerned about them. How are they doing? We want to help them in the best possible way that we know and that we can do. That is our duty. Now we're sitting in a state of isolation from each other. Don't touch hands, don't hug each other, stand 2 meters apart from each other. These are all the laws that are certainly coming into effect in the land of Israel, where I live, in the holy city of Jerusalem. Now, as we are distant from each other, let us consider the opportunities that we have so that we can be close to each other. And distance will come about through a plague. Closeness will come about through our acts of loving kindness to each other. Those acts automatically will bring us to be close. Now, what are some of the things that we could really work on in terms of our acts of kindness? I've decided that we're going to start this Shear. I hope that you'll continue listening to this Shear. It's the very beginning of the book of Ahavat Chessed, loving kindness, written by the Chofetz Chaim. And we're actually on Chelik Beit. I've skipped out Chelik Aleph for various reasons, the first section. I'm reading from section number 2. And the Chofetz Chaim is going to give us a powerful insight into where we're going wrong in terms of our connection with other people and what is bringing us down and what we need to do to bring ourselves up. Let us make a deal with each other. Let us connect with each other. I'm here for you. What difference can I make in your life? I'm putting it out there. Send me an email. Contact me on my site, www.lovingkindness.co. Tell me a bit about yourself. What are you going through? How can I help you? And then pass that message on and contact another friend and ask them how they're doing and see to it to be in touch, that a person shouldn't be alone, that a person should be able to connect with somebody else. We should be able to hold hands in a spiritual sense and support each other. Says the Chofetz Chaim, some key concepts about kindness. He's going to knock us out straight, and he's going to tell us some powerful things we need to work on. If we can but only internalize what these things are, we're going to be better people for ourselves, and we're going to be better for others. We're going to make a positive impact on the lives of others. So I'm going to read from this book. If you have a copy available, please follow along with me. I'll read the Hebrew and translate it, and we'll get an idea of what the Chofetz Chaim is talking about in terms of kindness. Here he is explaining what loving kindness is. As I say, when we started our website, lovingkindness.co, chesed ve'emet, that's indeed what we focused on. We wanted to focus on chesed, which is kindness, and emet, which is truth. And I chose the name lovingkindness.co because I felt it had so much to do with our activities. When we began, we were highly involved in assisting orphans to marry. You can check out on the site some of the couples that we helped to marry, orphans who were in need of marrying. What a big mitzvah. So many people don't appreciate what it can do for another when one supports somebody to get married. Well, we undertook that and we helped numerous couples. As you can see, some of those pictures there. And in addition to that, we helped other people as well. And wherever we can, we always try to help to the degree that we're able to. And of course, to the degree that others help us so that we can help them. I mean, that's basically how the world works. When people say that money makes the world go round, but it's not money that makes the world go round. It's loving kindness that makes the world go round. It's the kindness that we do to each other, one to the next, that really gives life into the world. Sure, you'll say, well, you can't give the bank loving kindness in order to pay a bill. You can't give it to the electricity company. Sure. But isn't it ironic how many people cannot pay those bills and somebody comes to the rescue? It's that loving kindness that causes the change. Sure, the money makes the bill that it should be paid, but it's that act of loving kindness that assisted so that the money was there, so that the bill could be paid. And we all need it in our lives. No matter where we are and who we are, every person needs loving kindness. This virus tells us that it does not distinguish between wealthy and poor. It does not distinguish between the powerful person and the person who lacks power, the humble person who has nothing. Everybody needs loving kindness at some point in their lives. Therefore, what we need to do for ourselves is to value and appreciate the difference of our loving kindness that it can have on somebody else, an immediate effect, and change their lives for the good. Let us see some things that we can work on and where the Torah is coming from in terms of this concept of loving kindness. The Chofetz Chaim begins his chapter. You know, a person should cleave to the attribute of kindness. How do we know that? Because the verse says in Micah, Higid lecha Adam, ma tov u'ma Hashem doresh mincha. It's told to you, to man, what is good and what is it that Hashem requires from you. What does Hashem require from us? The prophet Micah in chapter 6, verse 8, tells us what God wants. He doesn't say over here 613 mitzvot, although of course we know that there are 613 mitzvot. Doesn't say keep kosher. Doesn't say keep Shabbos, even though we know that these are mitzvot. You want to know the highest thing that we could ever do before we begin onto all of these mitzvot? Ki'im asos mishpat va'avas chesed. Doing judgment. Everything should be correct, fair, and avas chesed, and a love of kindness. That is what God wants from us. The verse should have said, Kim astos mishpat v'chesed, doing judgment and kindness, or ehov mishpat v'chesed, or it should have said, loving judgment and kindness. But it didn't say it exactly in this way. V'gam ma loshon higid lecha adam. And what does this mean? He tells to you, man. Well, what does that mean? What do the words mean? The mashma debaha kosov legalot davar is if the verse is coming to reveal something, it's coming to teach us something, revealing something new, shelo yadah adam me'atzmo, that a person wouldn't know from himself. V'halo kol ha'olam yodim. Everybody knows. The asos mishpatu inyan gadol mi parshas ve'ela mishpatim. That the idea of doing judgment in the world is a great thing. I mean, the world has courts. Everybody knows that judgment is the right thing to do. And if you read Parshas Mishpatim, there it discusses in great detail what it means to do judgment. The chesed hu inyan gadol, mikama psukim amorim al inyan zeh. And chesed is a great matter that we learn from many psukim, from many verses. As we bring down in the beginning of the book that we haven't discussed. But the matter is, according to what the rabbis said in the Gemara Sanhedrin on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, a person left his coat behind at the court. He should sing songs. This is what the Gemara says. A person left his coat behind in the courtroom. He should sing songs. It means to say that they took his garments. They took it away from him. The judge ruled that the person would be required to give up his garments, and afterwards all would be well. He should sing songs. And so the Chofetz Chaim is telling us that the rabbis are giving us an example. There's a story, says the Chofetz Chaim. Listen to this beautiful story. In one city, there was a group of rebellious people, robbers, thieves, violent individuals. And a number of people joined the group. In order to strengthen their friendship, they agreed amongst themselves that all the people of the group that they belonged to should wear a particular garment which was colored in all sorts of different colors. And that way, everybody would be able to recognize each other like a team. Everybody's playing on the soccer team. Everybody's playing on the rugby team, football. Everybody's wearing the same garments, the same colors. Everybody knows who's who on the team. And so the day went by, and everybody went to a big feast. Many people got drunk. And there were some people that were found over there. They didn't want to pay the bill. And so the owner of the pub, the owner of the place, he decided he's going to hold on to them. He's not going to let them go. Unless, of course, they would be forced to leave behind their garments as a pledge, which means to say, since they don't have their garments, they're bound to come back later, pay the bill, and they can get back the garments afterwards. The Yetzu may be Beit Bazar. So these fellows left the pub, they left the place where they owed the money, and they were very angry. In a short period of time, the secrets of these villains, violent individuals, became known to the king. And the sign that they did amongst themselves, they were wearing these particular garments, and the king knew exactly who was part of this gang. And they went off and they caught whoever was wearing that particular garment. They checked out what they were up to. And it became clear that they were acting against the state. They were evil people. And through this, they lost all of their property. Except for the new fellows who joined, and they had lost their garments because they didn't pay the bill. Well, since they didn't pay the bill, the garments were confiscated away from them. And as a result, when the king caught the gang, he wasn't able to find these people because they weren't wearing the garments. Lo ikure bahim. He didn't recognize him. He didn't recognize them. So they were saved, and they said to each other, we think that the Balabait was doing us something bad, because he took our garments away from us. But he did us a much better good, because we are now alive because of the fact that he took our garments. They went to him and let us go to him and let us give him great thanks this time. And then we're going to accept upon ourselves for the future that we're not going to do like the rest of our bad friends, in order that we won't be caught again. So they had a plan. We'll go back to the king now, and we'll say, thank you, sir. Thank you, kind, your honor, king, your honor, your majesty. Thank you so much. We were not caught out. We were part of it. We regret what we did, and we come here to do tshuva, to let you know that we're not going to be behaving in this way ever again. We have learnt our lesson. So too says the Chofetz Chaim, it applies to ourselves. A person should know, benafsho, in himself, that for the reason of theft, because a person could be that he's wearing a garment which it's not clean from robbery and violence. Well, what does that mean exactly? He's wearing a garment that's not. Here I'm wearing a garment, a very nice garment, and I don't think there's any problem. I didn't steal this from anybody. Oh, I didn't steal it. I start to think to myself, could it possibly be that the garment I'm wearing, I did steal? I didn't steal it. I went to the store and I purchased it. I paid X amount of money for this garment, he says. Yes, but perhaps he bargained the shop owner down. Maybe the garment was valued at 100 shekels, and he managed to bargain the shop owner down to 60 shekels, and he took it to 60 shekels, and he took 40 shekels away from the owner of the store. The owner of the store, we don't know. Perhaps he needed the 40 shekels. Maybe he was cheating us. Perhaps he put the price up. He inflated it artificially because he himself was cheating. But maybe he wasn't. Maybe, in all honesty, he needed 100 shekels. He paid 50 shekels for the garment. He needs to make a 50 shekel profit in order to pay his rent and make some sort of profit off the garment that he sells. And you came into the store and you bargained him down to 60 shekels. He was able to sell it at a 10 shekel profit, but you did nothing to help him. Well, that's theft. We have to refine ourselves. We have to think about all the times that we hold people back from earning the parnassah that's due to them. Oh, and maybe it is that this is the reason that he now lost some of the money that he might have had. Meaning something was taken away from him at a certain point in time. And the reason it was taken away from him is because he himself had taken something away from somebody else. He needs to put the connection in place. He needs to make the connection. As the rabbis teach us in Ketubot Samach Vav Samach Zayin Samach Vav Amud Beis Samach Zayin Amud Aleph le'inyan chisut tzedakah, in the matter of lacking tzedakah, v'kol shekain bazeh, and all the more so in this, which means to say, there's a principle in Torah. We are required to give a tenth of everything that we earn to somebody else. The stingy person gives a tenth. The good person, he gives a fifth of his profits that he earns to somebody else. That's tzedakah. However, if we do not behave as we should, according to the Torah, comes about certain times where we lose our own money on things that we never wanted to lose our money on. And it's almost as if God is telling us a message that he's saying, perhaps if you had spent the money on tzedakah, according to the halacha, of course, ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Well, that's what we mean to say. We don't mean to say that you should undertake yourself, if you're only earning 5,000 shekels a month, to go and give 1,000 shekels to charity and find that you cannot pay your rent. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a person in a normal situation who is earning an income which allows him to give charity. What do I mean by that? For example, a person who comes out at the end of the year as a profit, and instead of giving charity, he uses his profit for all sorts of luxurious things for himself. And he says, but I need luxurious things. And sure, he does need luxurious things. But if he's able to come out okay, he must realize that there's a responsibility to the world in general. That's loving kindness. That's what we're learning about. If you're listening to this shiur, it means that you want to connect with the value of loving kindness. If, of course, you want to take that luxurious boat, that yacht, that's going to take you around the world in 6 weeks, instead of giving money, your 10% to tzedakah, that's also okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But keep in mind that loving kindness is not the attribute that is being focused upon at this point in time. Instead, what's being focused upon is my own luxurious life. And there's nothing wrong with that. Enjoy life. But the Torah is telling us that every now and again, sometimes we lose out on something because we never gave when we should have. The money that can often go to the poor man, as the Torah says sometimes, goes to the doctor. Why did we get ill? We didn't do the mitzvot in a way that we should have. We didn't give where we needed to. So God says, so pay the doctor already. Who says the disease would have come necessarily if we had given? Perhaps the person already gives and he still gets the disease. God forbid. Now he's wondering double. He gives the money and he still gets the disease and he still has to pay. Well, of course, we don't know the calculations of heaven. We're not judging. We're not making a calculation and a judgment on every single person. Instead, we're giving a general aspect to understand. The general concept is that sometimes when we don't give the tzedakah that we're required to, the money is taken away from us in other ways. Or Sukkah. And the Gemara in Sukkah in Daf Chaf Tet Amud Beis says, Bishvil arba devarim, for the sake of 4 things. I'm just going to read this Gemara, which says the following. Omar Rav said, Bishvil arba devarim, for the four things, because of 4 things, says the Gemara in Sukkah. I'm not making this up. Because of 4 things. If you believe in the Gemara, if you believe in the oral Torah, you have to value what these words are. I'm not making it up. These aren't my words. For the sake of 4 things, the property of people who own whatever it is that they own, they go to the state treasury, or they get lost, or they are destroyed, or whatever happens. And here are the 4 things that can cause one to lose one's own property, the things that one has that belong to one. On those people, says Rashi, on people who employ somebody who they've got to pay, and they tell the fellow, I know that I owe you X amount for the job that you've done, but do me a favor, come back in a week and I'll pay you then. And he comes back in a week. He says, I'm here to get my money. You owe me 200 shekels for the work I did for you. He says, could you come back next? Oh, I'm in the big trouble. I don't have the money available today, or maybe next week. Would you come back again? Well, the person comes back again. And then the same thing happens. Can you imagine? But nobody thinks that he's stealing. Nobody thinks he's hurting this individual. He'll pay him. Don't worry. He'll pay him. He keeps telling him, come back. He's not lying. He's telling him he's going to pay him. He's going to pay him. But that's not the mitzvah of paying somebody who does a job for one. The mitzvah to pay somebody who does a job for one is to pay him immediately in what he's asking. He asked 200 shekels. He did the job. Pay him immediately. If not, says the Gemara, this puts a person into a situation where he can lose his own things. And then when he loses his own things, he's wondering, why did this happen to me? He needs to contemplate. Is it possible that he was one of these individuals who said to somebody who'd worked for him before, I'll pay you, but come back another time and I'll pay you then. Now the poor fellow has to get onto a bus. He has to get into his car, come back again, waste his gas, the petrol. He has to waste his time, coming back, going back, forwards and backwards, doesn't get paid. Imagine what he has to go through to get this money, but we don't think twice about it. We'll pay him, we say. We know he did the job. I'm not trying to get out of the deal. I'm going to pay him. The Torah says that's not an attitude to take. We're talking about honesty, mishpat. We're talking about chesed, kindness, what we need to do to help another person. Who's the second category? A person who, says Rashi, legamre gezel scharo, he steals his amount of salary that he has to pay him completely. How does that work? He tells the fellow, look, work for the month, and at the end of the month, I'll pay you. The fellow works very hard. At the end of the month, he comes to his boss, here I am, can you please pay me? No. Why? Oh, the business is having hard times, we're sorry, we can't pay you. Are you going to pay me? You only worked for a month in any case. You know what? It was a trial period. You had experience. It's enough. What do you need the money for, he says. He's another category of individual. You see, the Gemara is teaching us ethics, business ethics. It's also teaching us the right ways to behave with each other, to value the other's efforts in whatever work they do. the amount that they're required to be paid, honestly, for the work that they're doing. And a person who's not prepared to abide by these rules, says the Gemara in Sukkah, Daf, Chaf, Tet, Amud, Beis, is a person who might find himself without his own property one day. And when it disappears, he should think about it. Obviously, this happened to me for a good reason. Here is the third category. On account of the fact that are those who throw off the yoke of communal responsibility from their own necks, and they put it onto the necks of their fellow person. Somebody says to them, look, your duty is to help this particular community. So eventually he says, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'll give it to somebody else to do. They throw off their own yoke and they put it onto somebody else's head, and it was their responsibility. How many times do we know that in business also, where a business person is required to attend to something, and then afterwards he gives the job to somebody else and the other person doesn't do it correctly, and afterwards the boss calls the first fellow and says, well, why didn't you do it? He says, well, I gave it to the second fellow and he didn't do it, and so on and so forth. Such an individual is also liable. And on account of gasos haruach, says Rashi, shemiskaim umishtarim al achehem bishvil oshran. These are people who are arrogant and they take rulership over their brothers for the sake of their own wealth. Wow. Rashi told us a very powerful thing here. He's teaching us that sometimes people take advantage of others for their own selfish purposes so that they can be wealthy. Well, as we sit here in our state of quarantine around the world, so many people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, I don't know what the statistics is at this point in time. We need to think about whether we're being fair to our fellow in our right to live or in their right to live as much as our right to live. For example, I live in Israel, just as an aside. In Israel, the cost of property is highly expensive. And I often contemplate to myself, for a person who has no wealth, how does one begin to come up with figures like 2 million shekels for an apartment, 3 million shekels for an apartment? And the apartments are very pleasant, they're small, they're modest, they're very pleasant and modest. But to think of raising 2 million shekels to buy a home, or 3 million shekels, whatever it's going to be for a slightly bigger home, if the family is bigger or more space is needed for working purposes or whatever it may be, is almost impossible to think about. And the pricing for rental, if one watches the markets, can see goes up and up and up, but the salaries of people working never goes up. And one thinks to oneself, how is it that people live in a manner whereby the concept is that when I own, I will continue to increase and increase and increase and increase over my fellow until eventually my fellow will have absolutely nothing. And in my mind, I can't get over the fact to realize that he also needs to live, that I need to find a way how to help him so that he can live just like I live. But this is a concept of what's called gasot haruach. Rashi says a person who becomes arrogant over another on the side of wealth, which means that I demand that wealth for me is something that I need, but wealth for you is something that you don't need, which means to say, I value the importance of wealth in my life, but you are not an important person, and I don't have to respect who you are. Your life is your life, and I don't care about it. Well, that's not an attitude of Ahavat Chesed, of what we're speaking about. And this goes back to exactly where we are, where we're in a state of separation from each other, because we cannot get on with each other. We cannot see the other for who they are. We have already distanced ourselves from the other person in a way that is keeping us away from them automatically, so that we will not be able to connect with them. So the second category over here that we said, Valgosos haruach, v'gosos haruach keneged kulam. And when one is arrogant, this is the greatest over all of them. Aval ba'anavim kesiv. But with regards to humble people, the verse says, va'anavim yirshu oretz, that the humble inherit the land. V'hisangu al rov shalom. And the humble will inherit the land and delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Humility brings peace, and arrogance is something which is uncalled for, destroys lives, takes people out of the world. And if we take a look, as I say, where we're at this point in time, we consider even things like the world of real estate, where one person is vying for ownership of huge amounts of property at the expense of a person who has nothing, with little mercy, with little understanding of what this person is going through. When one is filled with gasos ruach, with this absolute arrogance of my wealth is far more important to me than your wealth is even important to you. You are not important. Same thing like the virus, where we are told that we have to keep our distance from each other. And yet there are many people who say that only applies to them. They're the ones that can get sick. But me, I don't get sick and I don't bring sickness upon other people. Therefore, I can be close to people. There's an arrogance here. And it's the arrogance that causes us to be in the state that ultimately, as the Gemara is telling us over here, where he can be that the homeowner has, that his home is confiscated, the property is confiscated by the state treasury. Says the Gemara in Sukkah, Chaf Tet Amud Beis, I'm not making it up. We continue back in the text that we're reading, because it's going to get very exciting. You have to stick around to see the follow-up, because so long as you don't read the follow-up, the discussion seems to be very harsh, very strong, and we don't know where we're going, and we think that he's criticizing us, but he's not just criticizing us. He's going to be taking us on a journey to tell us how to get out of the situation. It's something we need to contemplate, in particular at this point in time as we find ourselves in history where we are at right now. It's also written in Yirmiyahu, in your wings, God, there's to be found the blood of the souls of the poor who are innocent, which means to say that this is the only place that the poor are able to take refuge in the wings of the Shekhinah. And so therefore, Chazal tell us nicely, when the Beis Din saw, when they recognize that the garment is actually stolen, the garment of this person has been stolen, and so they give a pasak, they give a halachic ruling that it must be given to his fellow. A person should be singing and happy with this, in order that it won't be taken away from him from above, which means from God. And a person should go out clean of all his property, which means to say, this is the first small section that the Chofetz Chaim is telling us. He's told us the negative, which has a positive to it. The negative is that be careful of the things we do to others in terms of especially our financial relations with them, because when we are not behaving correctly, things can be just as easily taken away from us. Again, the virus is telling us this. It's not a case whether one is wealthy or poor. And it's not a case whether one is famous or one is not famous. It's affecting everybody. And so too does this concept exist, that whether a person regards himself as important or not important, if it is that he is not following in accordance with these principles, then he too will find himself in the situation. Now we need to take it to the positive. Now we can understand the verse. Shall he gid lecha adam, where it says, he has told you, man, God has told you. Dahainu, which means, when a person works with all of his strength in order to acquire money, and he's not strict on himself, that the money should be completely clean from all theft and violence, and all sorts of oppression, all sorts of hurt to other individuals, similar to this. Even though he thinks to himself He thinks he's doing very well in the effort that he's putting in order to acquire what it is that he's acquiring. And the final accounting of all of his deeds will only be accounted for at the end when he leaves this world. So the prophet comes to us and he says to us, he has told you, man, what is good. God has told us what is good. Which means to say, it's not like people think that it's going to be good for him if he acquires lots and lots of money. But rather, what is really good is when a person uses his money in order to do what is right. Dahainu, which means a person begins to contemplate on all the profit that he makes. Is that did he make this profit according to the rules of the Torah? In order that the money will remain in his hands. And this is what it says. You have to do what is the right thing to do. It's not good enough to say that one has earned a lot of money at the expense of somebody who could never afford to pay what he was paying. Meaning in a sense of cheating, of course, not in a sense of honesty. We're talking in a sense of cheating, where a person knows clearly that he is taking extra from somebody where he shouldn't have. And as a result of that, this person is going to suffer further. Afterwards, the prophet continues and he says, the Ahavat Chessed, second degree. Not only should a person involve himself in what is right, he needs to involve himself in what is kindness. Which means to say, a person shouldn't think that only in this it's good enough that he's going to get his money in a way that there's no theft involved. And that's how his money is going to remain with him. And everything will be good for him through this. A person must see to it to do acts of righteousness, tzedakah, charity, and kindness. With his money, according to the wealth that he has. The beloved haki, because without that, in the end, his money can just disappear. Let's think about it. Those watching the markets today can see how the markets have simply dropped for no reason. People have lost huge amounts of money. How does that happen? They've earned it. They worked hard for it. How did it happen that one day they had so much and the next day the money just disappeared? And the answer is, when a person takes his money and he gives it in a way that it assists other people who need it, then he adds salt to the money, meaning to say he preserves his money so that it remains with him all the time. Kamosha Amru, as the rabbis said, Bekesuvas Samach Vav in the Gemara in Kesuvas on page 66, Amud Beis, the Inyan Nakdimon Ben-Gurion Ayin Sham, he tells us the story of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion, who was a very wealthy man. Now I'm going to read the story. I'm just going to read a translation because there's quite a lot to get through, and I just wanted to share what the story is. I'm reading from the Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, the Korean Talmud Bavli edition. I'm actually reading a translation that appears on surefire.org, and you're welcome to check it out yourself. You just enter the details, Ketubot 66b, and you'll see over there the story. Rav Yehuda said, there was an incident involving the daughter of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion. When the sages designated for her 400 gold coins for her account of perfumes from her late husband's estate for use on the same day, she blessed them and said to them, "This is how you should also pledge for your own daughters." And they answered after her, "Amen." Apropos the daughter of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion, the Gemara relates what later became of her. The sages taught. There was an incident involving Raban Yochanan Ben Zakai. When he was riding on a donkey and leaving Jerusalem, and his students were walking after him to learn from him, he saw a certain young woman who was gathering barley from among the dung of the animals of Arabs. She was so poor that she subsisted on the undigested barley within the dung. This is the daughter of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion, the wealthy man. And when she had a wedding, she was given all these fine things. She was a millionaire, a billionaire. When she saw him, she wrapped herself in her hair, as she had nothing else with which to cover herself, and stood before him. She said to him, "My teacher, sustain me." He did not recognize her. So he said to her, "My daughter, who are you?" She said to him, "I am the daughter of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion." He said to her, "My daughter, the money of your father's household, where did it go? How did you become so poor?" She said to him, "My teacher, is it not that they say such a proverb in Jerusalem, salt for money is lacking?" That's what we said a few moments ago. There is nothing with which to preserve it and prevent it from being lost. And some say the proverb asserts that kindness, chesed, is salt for money, i.e., using money for acts of kindness preserves it. He continued to ask her, "And the money of your father-in-law's house, which was used properly for benevolent acts, where is it?" She said to him, "This one came and destroyed that one." All the money was combined, and it was all lost together. She said to him, "My teacher, do you remember when you signed on my marriage contract?" He said to his students, "I remember that when I signed on the marriage contract of this woman, and I read in it, it listed 1,000 thousands, i.e. 1 million gold dinars as a dowry from her father's house, aside from that which was promised her from her father-in-law." Raban Yochanan Ben Zakai cried and said, "How fortunate are you, Israel, for when Israel performs the will of the omnipresent, no nation or tongue can rule over them. And when Israel does not perform the will of the omnipresent, he delivers them into the hands of a lowly nation. Not only are they delivered into the hands of a lowly nation, but even into the hands of the animals of a lowly nation, as in the pitiful instance of Nakdimon's daughter." The recorded incident implies that Nakdimon lost all of his wealth after having failed to use it for acts of kindness. So the Gemara asks, "And did not Nakdimon Ben-Gurion perform charity? Isn't it taught in a brisa?" They said about Nakdimon Ben-Gurion that when he would leave his home to go to the study hall, there were fine woolen garments his attendants would spread underneath him to walk on. And with his blessing, the poor would come and fold them up from behind him for themselves. Clearly, he gave abundant charity. The Gemara offers two possible explanations. If you wish, say that he acted that way for his own honor, to demonstrate that he considered the exorbitant expense trivial. And if you wish, say that as he should have done, he did not do. As people say, according to the camel is the burden. The stronger the camel, the heavier the load it must bear, even if he gave altruistically. Nakdimon Ben-Gurion did not give as much as he was expected to give. So we see over here from this Gemara that the story of Nakdimon Ben-Gurion teaches us that every person is obligated to do acts of kindness, to give in accordance with the money that he has. So is the strength of the camel, the load that the camel is able to take upon itself. Every person is judged on the basis of how much he has and the responsibility that he has to give to others in accordance with what it is that he has. And that's it. It says that there's this love of kindness. And it doesn't say mishpat in the doing of righteousness and kindness. The prophet is teaching us an unbelievable teaching. That we, through our many sins, we all mess up. Even though we all do kindness. It comes only through being forced to do it. Which means, When a poor person who's needing something comes to us one time or two, it's difficult to tell him to go. So we do a kindness for him. And also, even when we give to this poor person, we do it in a way which is lacking our hearts. We don't really desire to give to him. How many people know the story? We see on the social media, those people who watch the social media will take note and see many times people put out and say, things are difficult for me. Can you help me, please? And people will say, well, I'll give you this once, but never return back to the site again. Afterwards, you're banned. Or somebody will say, oh, that person, we've seen them ask once and twice. Oh, they're fake. Stay away from that person. That's dangerous that you're getting into it. Don't help them. We're all too quick to make our judgments. And if anything, we'll give once or twice to fulfill our responsibilities. But thereafter, we say, be on your way, poor man. Get on with your life. I don't have time for you any longer. From my perspective, my responsibility was to help you and say goodbye and good riddance to you. And it's because of this that the prophet came along and he said, what does Hashem request? Except the Ahavat Chessed. The pasuk didn't teach us. The verse doesn't say to do chesed. It says to love chesed. Think about this for a moment. How often is it, and how easy it is, when the situation comes up? Somebody approaches us and says, I need help. And we have two choices in front of us. We can say, for example, I'll help you. Here you are. What can I do to help you? Or one can say, I can't help you. And that's also okay. The person, sometimes he can't help. But then there's a reaction afterwards. One person says, not only can't I help you, but stay away. Get away from me. I hate the fact that you are asking for help. This is the person that the pasuk is talking to. One has to learn to love kindness. And was it so difficult for a person to say kind words to the other? To say to him, I wish you that God should bless you with an abundance of wealth? Was it so hard for a person to do that? But we ignore it. We don't want to wish the person kindness. We don't want to wish him goodness. We don't want to wish him wealth. He's an irritant on society. Why can't he just go and find work or do something in order to acquire what he needs? Why must he bother me? And so the prophet says, I'm not telling you to do kindness. I'm telling you to love kindness. Once a person gets to a stage where he loves kindness, he will automatically do kindness. But until he's able to love kindness, he will never be successful in being able to give to another person. Giving to another person can only take place when a person is already in love with the attributes of kindness. This means to say, said the Chofetz Chaim, don't think in your soul that sometimes you're doing kindness, you fulfill your obligation through it. Because if a person has to have with him this love, this attribute of kindness, and he knows there's a great difference in what a person does when he's forced to do it, he's compelled to do it. The couple are getting married, they have nothing. He gives them a talit to put over their heads for the chuppah, give them a packet of chips, and that is going to suffice for them to fulfill their obligation of getting married. And kol hakavod, we fulfilled our obligation. That's the hechreach. That's the necessity. We need to give to somebody so that they can have just what they need to fulfill their obligation. And then compare that to the thing that a person does when he loves that he's doing it for. So the poor person didn't have the means to get married. So a wealthy person said, well, you're poor anyway. You don't need really much because you're poor. What we're going to do for you is we're going to give you the basic that you need. And when you fulfill that obligation, you'll be married and get on with your life already. That is the person who fulfills the mitzvah of helping the chatan and kala out of an absolute obligation. And one can only say, what a pity that he does not appreciate and value what is happening. Because there is another aspect, and the Chofetz Chaim is teaching us that aspect. It is an aspect called Ahavat Chessed, a love of kindness. Once I love kindness, once I am in love with this attributes of kindness, I want to do more of it. So the mitzvah was to make sure the couple got married. It's not good enough because I love kindness. I want to see that they have the best. I see a couple got married, they have no home, they have no means to start a home. I will give them a packet of chips or a super bag of goodies where they'll get salt and a loaf of bread and a cola of some kinds and some sweet things, and they can start their marriage with that. Well, that's fine. If you're out to fulfill the mitzvah and try to give them this drop of a dosage of happiness, you've done well. We've all done well. But it's not a love of kindness. Because the love of kindness is the person who recognizes that if the couple is lacking, it's because they need, not because they have and therefore they get. There's an amazing thing that I personally have noticed. Perhaps you've seen it yourself. Comes to Purim, it's a good example to speak about. The poor man who has no family, he has no friends, comes to Purim, he goes to shul. Someone says, well, Nebach, poor fellows, give him something. What does he get? He gets some chocolates and a packet of chips. And good for him. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's all very well and good that this person had mercy on him and he gave him this. It was a gift. It's for the mitzvah. Well, I once went into a very big building in Yerushalayim. And we were actually going there to ask some people for assistance and to advertise ourselves and to try and get some work. And as he went around, it happened to be Purim. And as he went around that day, I noticed, now in the building itself, it is one of the finest buildings in Yerushalayim, where apartments sell for really gigantic amounts, 4, 5, 6 million shekels as a start. You cannot get an apartment there for anything less than that. And obviously, these are very wealthy people who are living there on a normal level. When we say people on average, it certainly must be that way. And when we went there on Purim, we noticed that there were a number of large gifts of Purim baskets outside some of these homes. Fabulous things. You go to the store today for 500 shekels, you pick up the most beautiful basket of chocolates, sweets, alcohol, all sorts of things in it. And they are packed outside the person's home. Now, the person's not even there. He didn't even answer the door. He was so busy having a great time on Purim, he wasn't even at home. And he gets back later that day. Trust me, this is the nature of Israel. He gets back that day. The things are there outside. Nobody took them. And he comes in and he's got this fabulous array of baskets. But we stop to think, this is the wealthy person, and he received these abundant baskets. And the poor person went to shul, he had nothing. He still can't pay his rent. He's still in debt, the poor fellow. And he gets a tiny little gift. Why did he get this gift? Because he's poor. The poor man gets the small thing because he's poor. The wealthy man gets the beautiful basket of things because he's wealthy. His friends are wealthy and everybody else is. So he ends up getting the best of everything. But the Chofetz Chaim is not talking about that. The Chofetz Chaim is talking about Ahavat Chessed. Are we going to be people who love kindness, or are we going to fulfill our obligations? If we are interested in fulfilling our obligations, we can take this book of the Chofetz Chaim, we can turn it, close it, and we can put it away because it's not going to help us. But if we are the type of people who value that there's more to life than an obligation, we fall in love with an attribute called kindness, then we truly fulfill what it is that God wants from us. Because the pasuk says, what is it that God wants from us? To love kindness. Once we love kindness, we're able to make a massive change in the life of other people. What better time to think about this as the world are surrounded by a virus which is affecting everybody, separating us from each other, telling us, if you want to stay separate, stay separate. If you want to stay at home, away from everybody, stay at home. Keep to yourself. But that's not what we want. We want to be out there in the world. Well, if you want to be out there in the world is supposed to be run on the attributes of kindness, which is exactly what the Chofetz Chaim is teaching us over here. And here's a sign, says the Chofetz Chaim. Ha'anhaga shekol adam mitnaheg im beno. The way that a father would accustom himself with his son, with his food, over malmushav, and with his garments, over nesu'im shelo, and when he gets married. We're talking, of course, about a father who understands the value of food, a father who understands the value of garments, a father who understands the value of what a wedding is. And whatever love that the father has towards his son. This father is going to accustom himself with his son far more than he is obligated to do. Isn't that true? Because the father who truly loves his son, and the son says, so I need a loaf of bread. He says, son, you need a loaf of bread. If possible, I'm going to get you the loaf of bread with a steak. And the son says, Dad, he says, I need just a new pair of pants. His dad says to him, what? Pants? We're getting you a fine suit. How come does the father behave this way to his son? Because he loves him. He wants to give him the very best. He goes out of his way. He does it. When we were helping couples to get married, orphan couples, there was one particular family that made a massive impression upon me. And I'm going to share the story because I think it is so powerful that anyone listening to it should really consider where one's love really is at and the difference one can make in the lives of one's children. We went to the family. They were asking for assistance. And Baruch Hashem, we were able to provide assistance for them. Through the help that we received from people like yourself who's listening to the Shear, we were able to give to them also. It's all documented. We have pictures of these things. Anybody who's interested is welcome to hear these stories and see what it was that we were doing at that point in time. And we still try to continue to whatever degree that we're able to today. And we went to see the parents of this couple, of the daughter, I think it was. And they told us they were busy packing up their apartments. They were moving. Why were they moving? They said they couldn't afford the wedding and to start the life for their children. And so they had decided to sell their apartment, buy a far smaller apartment, and give that money to the new couple to start their own life together. And that is what they did. This is the concept of Ahavat Chessed. Who ever heard of it before? You see, most people would say, well, I'm living in my house. My son has got married, my daughter's got married, and they need to start their own life together. Oh, they're young, then they don't need an apartment yet. Oh, they're older, they should have had enough money to buy their apartment. You can never win. But the person who loves, the person who is an Ahavat Chessed person, he loves kindness. If he fits into this category, he gives beyond what is possible in order to make sure. The son only wanted bread. He says, I'll give you a steak also. The son only wanted pants. I'm going to give you a suit. The son says it would be sufficient for me if I could just rent every single month. He says, son, let us work on a plan to come up with a means that you can own your own apartment. Wow. This is the concept of Ahavat Chessed that the Chofetz Chaim is certainly talking about. I'm not making it up. You can open up your Ahavat Chessed on page Pei Vav in most modern editions. It's 86. You will see these words written inside. Written by the Chofetz Chaim, who we rely upon for halakha on a daily basis in so many areas, the authority in the laws of Lashon Hara, and certainly perhaps the authority in the concept of kindness to another. And the Chofetz Chaim says, even though the son doesn't even ask from the father, one day he comes home, there's a new suit for him. One day he comes home, he sees a beautiful meal for him. Everything is there for him already because the father loves the son. The father is happy. He's happy to give. V'tov leiv, and he's of a good heart. K'shemeitiv imor, when he does this good to his son. Kain mamash be'inyan zeh shel chesed. So too is this matter with kindness. K'she'adam yeh lo ahava lemidah zo, when a person has this love for this attribute. He looks wherever he can with all of his strength. How can he do kindness with his friends? This is the person who is a lover of kindness. He does everything with a beautiful eye. He wants the best for the other person. A fellow greets him on the street. He says, I'm struggling. He says, all I have is 5 shekels. I'm giving you 5 shekels. But I tell you what, I wish that Hashem makes you a millionaire. If there's a way that I know something that can help you to become that millionaire or that billionaire, I'm going to help you as well. What have I got to lose? I want the best for you. I love kindness. I want to see you have just like I have. And if I don't have, maybe we've got to work together so that we can have together. But why do I need to insult the other? Because he's asking for assistance. Such a person is lacking the attributes of loving kindness. Umidas HaChesed, he kollet kama v'kama inyanim. And this attribute of kindness includes within it many things. As we're going to learn later on in this book. And the important thing is that everything should be done in a way of love, and it should not be done in a way of necessity. We're going to stop here, which is actually the end of the reading. This particular work is divided up into a number of sections to allow us to complete the reading over a 3-month period, and every 3 months to revise the work. We've read 2 sections at the moment. And what I really want to say is, so here's where we're at. I decided I wanted to start this shiur in loving kindness because we're at a time when we look at ourselves, we need to say to ourselves, what is this virus coming to teach us? The one thing that is coming to teach us is being on one's own completely away from society is not an easy life. It intrudes upon everything that we really want to be a part of. We want to be a part of that society. We want to be around other people. We want to connect with other people. But the virus is saying, you don't really want to do that. That is why I'm going to split you apart so that you will find yourselves in a difficult situation, wondering how you will get back together again. How do we get back together again? We give. We learn to love. Right now, many people are sitting in quarantine. What can I do? Look at this. I'm giving a shiur online. You can do the same. Form a friendship group with your friends and sit and speak for an hour about good things, positive things, how you can help somebody else. Make a way of doing it. Here I open myself up and I say, what are you going through? Send me an email. Be in touch. Let's make a friendship. Let's connect with each other. Let's care for each other and wish the best in our situations to the degree that we're able to. We ourselves are going through our own tests and challenges, and we must deal with the difficulties that everybody deals with. And of course, if you go to our site, you will see that we ourselves ask for assistance so that we can continue doing the things that we do. And finding ourselves in the situation makes our life also more difficult. And we rely upon people like yourself to help. And in return, we give back something to you, and you'll see it and you'll understand it when those relationships are made. And of course, to those people who have given to us and have contributed to the projects that we've been involved in, you've made a difference in our lives. You have loved the kindness. You have loved this attribute, and you have made a change in our lives for the good. At this point in time, I'm going to conclude this shiur, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do like this video, click on the bell to subscribe to my channel, and make a positive comment of some kind, or be in touch, whatever you want to do. Visit my site, www.lovingkindness.co. That's what it's all about. Chesed ve'emet. And make comments, share the video with your friends, let them know what we're doing. We need more subscribers, we need more members to our site. We need to be in touch, we need to care for each other, we need to give to each other, we need to make a difference to each other. We can be certain with this attribute of kindness to each other, increasing and thinking of new ways of how to help each other, that this will be the sugula, this should be the sugula, in a good charm, a good force that will bring healing to the world, which is what we all need. I wish everybody who is not well a refuah shlema, they should get well, and perhaps if you are in a strong enough state to take upon oneself this idea of thinking about the idea of how can I do more to bring kindness in the world, and how can this add to my merit, that God should also grant me a refuah shlema immediately so that I should be well and healthy to do more goodness and kindness in the world. I'm Eliyahu Shear, www.lovingkindness.co. I wish you all the best and look forward to being in touch soon. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.